Today we shall do the last chapter in your book, that is The Hunting Snake. It's a poem written by Judith Arundel Wright. Before we go into the poem or talk about the poem, we shall deal with the the poet of the poem. Judith Wright, or Judith Arundel Wright, entire name she was an Australian poet, environmentalist, and campaigner for Aboriginal land rights. So, who are Aborigines? Aborigines are the member of the people living in Australia, that is the natives of Australia, before when the Europeans arrived. So, just like America, which was a colony of the British, similarly, Australia later became the colony of the British. So, before the Europeans went there, the natives who lived out there in Australia, they were called Aborigines. So, she was a poet, an environmentalist, and a campaigner for these Aboriginal land rights. Wright's work is noted for a keen focus on the Australian environment. Why am I stressing on this point? You will come to know later on, which began to gain prominence in Australian art in the years following World War II. Wright's aesthetic, here aesthetic is in the noun form, here aesthetic means a philosophical theory as to what is beautiful. So Wright's aesthetic centers on the relationship between mankind and the environment, which she views as the catalyst for poetic creation. So that relation works as a catalyst for her poetic creation. Her images, characteristically drawn from flora and fauna, yet contain a mythic substrata that probes at the poetic process, limitations of language, and the correspondence between inner existence and the objective reality. Moving on to the poem, see, the poet, it's from your text, the poet in the text. She was an Australian poet and she wrote many other famous works, several collections of poetry, which among the ones most noticeable among them were The Moving Image, Woman to Man, The Gateway, and many more. This following poem, that is The Hunting Snake, describes the poet's experiment of watching a black snake. Poet experiments, she watches a of watching a black snake as it makes its way across an area of grassland. The poet looks on. She is a bit fascinated as as the snake hunts for food, and it finally disappears into the grass. Now, starting with the poem, see, this entire poem is divided into 4 stanzas, which are called 4 lines each. Again, these stanzas have 4 lines each, so they are called quatrains. 4 stanzas, 4 lines each, they are called quatrains. The first 3 quatrains have a rhyme scheme of AB, AB, while the last quatrain, the rhyme scheme is A, B, B, E. What is rhyme scheme? You see A, B, A, B. That means grace, pace, sky, by. So A, B, A, B. Then in the last stanza, A, B, B, A. That is gone becomes rhymes with on, and pray rhymes with day. So A, B, B, A. Understood? That is the rhyme scheme. Now, when we say sun warmed in the late season's grace. Now, before, that's the first line, sun warmed. So, the warmth of the sun here is very pleasant. It is not a hot day. The sun is there, and the warmth of the sun, it makes us feel good. The warmth is enjoyable. And late season in Australia means the autumn season, which is very clear from the next line. See, under the autumn's gentlest sky, it means the season is autumn, so the weather is pleasant the sun shining in the sky and the warmth that it gives is very soothing. Okay, so sun warmed in the late season's grace. The word grace means as if it's she wants to say that it's a grace from God. It's God's grace that the weather is so beautiful. And since the weather is very beautiful, the poet and her companion, it may be a female companion, it may be a male companion, that thing is revealed in this poem. So they go out for a walk. They decide to take a stroll. So we walk, sun warmed in the late season's grace, under the autumn's gentlest sky, we walked. Till there, you see, there is no punctuation mark till we walked, and then you see, and froze half through a pace. So, nearly 2.5 lines, you see there is, it continues without any pause. So, this particular, why is this given? Here, it suggests as if the smooth movement of, that smooth movement of everything. The weather is calm, it's beautiful, and they take a walk. So there's nothing to stop their progress. So it's a beautiful rhythm that continues on, and then it suddenly stops when they see the snake. So, and froze halfway through a pace. That means they were maintaining a particular pace while they were walking, and suddenly they stopped. They completely froze. Froze, it means they were so shocked that they could not move. What made them, why were they shocked? The reason is given in the last sentence of the first stanza. The great black snake went reeling by. So this was the reason why the poet and her companion suddenly came to a stop. Now, a few poetic devices have been used here. First thing is the continuation of the first two lines through the third line. So till we walked, the smooth pattern is maintained, the smooth pace is maintained. That literary device is called enjambment. Enjambment. It means that there is no punctuation to which points out a pause. There is no pause here. Punctuation. What does a punctuation do? It shows a kind of pause. So there is no pause here. Smooth movement is noticed till we walk. And why is it given? Just to surprise the readers when they suddenly freeze. So in order to understand, maybe the poet tries to emphasize the point when they freeze to see the snake. So before, in the first 2.5 lines, she uses enjambment to show the smooth flow, and the sudden stop, the sudden halt is showed in order to make it more prominent. This figure of speech is being used. Seshura. Seshura. That means the flow of the line comes to a sudden halt. They freeze. Froze half through the pace. So the two figures of speech has been used here. Now, with the snake having entered the scene, a certain element of terror too is introduced in the atmosphere. Till now they were so secure, they felt so secure, they thanked God because of the pleasant weather. How do we know that? Because she mentions the word grace. That is a kind of interpretation that we can make. And but sudden terror is introduced with the coming of the snake. The beautiful weather and the companionship of the poet's friend had created a certain smugness, but the great black snake shattered the feeling of security. That is how the first stanza comes to an end. Now in the second stanza we see head down, tongue flickering on the trail, he quested through the parting grass. Sun glazed his curves of diamond scale, and we lost breath to see him pass. Head down. That means here there is the snake did not show any signs of aggression. It was rather quite submissive. It was, you can see, it was more bent on looking for something. Its head was bent down, its tongue flickering. Why is its tongue flickering? Because it why does a snake's tongue flicker? We must know that the snake does so to collect odors. That that odor which is present in minuscule moisture particles floating through the air. And why does he do so? He tries to collect information about the prey he is hunting. So he flickers his tongue and he's more intent on that purpose. So he's submissive. There's no signs of aggression. Usually, how do we know that the snake is aggressive or wants to attack? Here, it shows signs of aggression. A raised hood. A raised hood is characteristic of anger and also a show of power, to show that I am more powerful. If you come near me, I will attack you. It's a kind of defense mechanism. So there's no raised hood here. Rather, it is bent down. And here the snake's head is down. That is, the snake does not wish to antagonize the people present. It is rather quite busy to catch the scent of the prey. And we see the word trail there, flickering on the trail. It's not a road actually. So you see, when you say it's not a road. When people walk, it's a track made by constant footfalls. Footfalls of whom? Of people or creatures who go by, who reel by. Here, the snake. And it's so a trail. It's not a road, but it's a path created by constant footfall. The word quested, the word quest, looking for would have satisfied, but the word quested, which also means looking for, but it's mostly used in a grander scale. We talk about grand things when we use the word quest. Who used to go for quests? Knights used to go for quests. They used to go looking for various things. You must have heard about Arthur and the knights of the round table. So they used to go for various quests. And who are these knights? They are very brave people. And not only are they brave, they are very just. It is believed that knights are very brave. They are very just people. So the word quested. So there's a deliberate use of the highlighted form. The grandeur is deliberately used here. Maybe it tries to elevate, show that the snake's the snake is looking for its prey. It is nothing less than a quest. Or it tries to, deliberate use of the word grandeur. The deliberate use of the word quest is to show that the snake goes on to look for a small prey. It may be quite a small thing for us. It's just looking for something. What? A prey. For us, it's a small thing. But for the snake, it means his day's food. So that means a lot to him. So there, it can be used two ways. You can interpret according to your own way. These two possible suggestions are given. And it quested through the parting grass. So when it moved forward, the grass seemed to part, as if the royal royal creature is coming, and then as if the crowd is moving, the crowd is parting. Here the grass is parting to make way. Nature helps it to look for its prey. The grass is parting, or in the more literary sense, it's simply when that snake moves, the grass itself parts. And so the word quest, and why is it used, in which context it could have been used, is mostly understood. And this tries to compare the snake to the brave and fearless knights, as I told you. It can also be conveyed in a more, as I said, it may be conveyed more humorously, as if saying that the snake is looking for its food, small food. It's later mentioned in the poem, small food, looking for small food, its prey. It might be nothing for us, but that is a big deal for them. They are looking for its food, a day's food, and that's something really important for them. So it can be used in both the contexts. Now, sun glazed his curves. The poet here, while comparing the snake with the knights, as I told you, it's trying to draw a comparison with the knights to show the difference between the magnitude of both their searches. Now, the parting grass, as I told, does not stand in its way, makes way, and the snake, like the loyal knights, they move forward unhindered by the grass, by nature. She is silent observer. Who was a silent observer here? The poet and her companion, they are silent observers. They simply watch the events quite objectively without trying to interfere. So we too must not interfere in the nature's course, and if we do so, things might might cause a problem. So the poet tries to say that nature moves in its own free will, in its own pace, and we should not disturb nature. Being conservationist, we know that she was very much for the very vocal about the people, not that just the people, not just the natives, about the nature and the various elements of nature. So she has a certain respect and dignity. She shows, her poetry shows dignity towards the snake. And the sun glazed curves, diamond scales, we see when the poet and her companion is being able to see, they are being able to see the curves of the diamond scale. Okay, that means they are very much near to the snake. They are very close to the snake, and they notice the pattern of its scales, which shines in the sunlight. The beauty of the snake is brought out in this line, and the fear too. Not only is the beauty brought out, the fear too. We lost breath. What does it say? We lost breath. When do we lose breath? When you are really afraid. You draw in a sharp breath. That's being afraid. You are shocked. You are in awe. So the poet here is not only afraid. There's a mixed feeling of shock. There's fear in it. Of course, there's fear. It's a deadly snake. Poisonous one too might be. And still, there's a certain dignity, a certain awe, certain she admires the beauty of the snake as well. And they both lost breath to see him pass. This obviously because of the proximity of the creature. That means the creature being quite near to them. Now we move on. What track he followed? What small food fled living from its? What track he followed? What small food fled, living from his fierce intent? We scarcely thought. Still, as we stood, our eyes went with him as he went. So, what small food? Actually, he was looking for a prey which actually has to be small. So, small food shows insignificance as well, fled living from its fierce intent. And how could that creature be able to escape such a dangerous predator from its fierce intent? It is bent on the snake. The posture of the snake, it shows that it is hell-bent on looking for its prey, and that prey seems to have no escape, and that it could have still have been alive. That is really shocking. So what track he followed, what small food fled, living from its fierce intent, we scarcely thought. Still, as we stood, our eyes went on with him. So as if when the snake, they are following the snake with their eyes. They cannot help, it's just as if they are in a trance. The shock, the fear, and the remarkable beauty of the snake and its fierce intent, they are too captivating, and they have as if put the poet and her companion in a bit of a trance, and they seem to follow his path. And as he goes on searching for his food, they too look for his food with him, as if they are with him. Their eyes follow the snake, the great black snake. So the flickering tongue of the snake had caught the scent of its food, and the snake followed the track. The poet seems to be awed at the luck of the poor prey which had fled from its fierce predator. Heads down, tongue flickering, shows the earnestness of his search as he tries to hunt down its prey. The poet and his companions stood rooted to the spot. They are rooted to their spot, they can't move, as if transfixed by the snake. They do so quite unintentionally, and they follow the snake with their eyes. Our eyes went with him as we went, as if looking for the prey it intends to kill. Now, when we say the great black snake, why is the word "the" used there? That is something to think about. Now, "the" is used to give importance to the creature, to the snake here. Great means something that can be positive, or it can be used negatively. Okay, and black, which can depict fear, it depicts fear, usually depicts fear or evil or death, omen of death. Black, and reeling is a movement of the snake. So the great black snake suggests importance. Therefore, the definite article is being used here. Now, in the third paragraph, as we see that the poet and a companion, they are quite transfixed and they cannot move. Their eyes follow the snake. The last paragraph, you see, cold, dark, and splendid. He was born. Cold, dark, and splendid. The three adjectives being used here. Cold means it can be, death is cold. Of course, death is cold. It lacks warmth. That means it has no feelings. That means cold can symbolize many things. Cold suggests death. When that death comes to you, you become cold. So, cold, of course, it's there. Dark and splendid as well. There's a positive adjective used here, splendid. The poet cannot but accept the fact that though it is dangerous, though its intent is negative, actually it's going to kill, it's going for a kill. But she cannot but remark at the beauty of the snake. Okay. So cold means the harbinger of death or evil or something dangerous. These are all negative adjectives here. Okay, and then again the use of splendid, that is the positive adjective. What does the poet do here? The poet uses another poetic device which is called juxtaposition. That means two elements placed side by side. So what is juxtaposition? It's an act of placing two elements or two characteristics side by side or close together to allow for comparison or contrast. So there's a contrast shown here. Okay, cold, dark, and yet it is splendid. So the poetic device used here is juxtaposition, and it is beautiful as well as dangerous at the same time. What does the poet want to stress? It means it is dangerous as well as beautiful at the same time. The snake disappears into the grass, where the snake leaves the poet and his companion. Of course, they are happy that the danger is over, but they looked at each other and went on. That means now they can move. Till now they had been rooted to the spot. They were so afraid, so transfixed by what was going on around them. It was like a drama being held, drama that held them in a trance, and now it's over. So they go on their own way. Actually, they are relieved that the dangerous creature, the fierce creature, had left. So they were shocked. They simply looked at each other. They were so shocked that they had nothing to speak about. So they simply went on. They looked at each other and went on. And the experience that they had, the sudden experience that they had not expected it. No one expects it. The sudden coming of the snake into the scene. At the beginning, we see they were very comfortable. They were very happy because the pleasant weather. They were going for a stroll, and suddenly the snake came into the scene. So it was a shock, and now they are released from that shock. But it is too much, so they don't have anything to talk about. This experience takes some time to seep in. So They simply look at each other and go forward on their way. So this is what the poem is all about. Just see what figures of speech I talked about, the meaning of each particular line, and the symbols, the rhyme scheme, the fact that I mentioned there were 4 quatrains. Understand the meaning of each and every line. Just go through the poem very well. After this, we will do a few questions. See, I've given you 5 questions. The first is, explain the phrase late season's grace. Second, why is the definite article used before the word snake, the great snake? Why is it said the? As I told you before, it's there, given there in your, I've said this while I was explaining. The third question is, what is suggestive of the snake's movement? Heads down, tongue flickering. Fourth, what was the poet's reaction towards the snake? How did the poet react? What did she do? So her entire reaction you should have to mention, and why did she do so? And 5, we took a deeper breath of day. Explain the line in context of the poem. So these 5 questions. Just go through the explanation, read every line, try to understand, and try to solve these questions.